How do we simplify radicals? When it's not a perfect square root, it's we don't have time to estimate, and we just need to simplify it. The best way that I have to show you is that if you would just go and try to factor the number that's underneath the radical sign. So 200, you have to ask yourself, what two numbers can I multiply together to get 200? Thankfully, you're not stuck in the trap that square roots puts you in, where it has to be the same number multiplying itself. Instead, you can just say any two numbers that when you multiply them, you get 200 would work. So the easiest two I can think of would be 2 and 100. If you notice, I've got 2 in red, mainly so that way we can just see that it's a prime number and we don't have to worry about factoring that number down anymore. 100 though, most people will go, well, 10 times 10 is 100. So let's go ahead and factor that down. 10 is not a prime number for either one, but when you're simplifying radicals like this, anytime that you come through here and you look at your numbers that you're factoring down, if it happens twice, it lets you basically be able to cancel them out and put them on the outside of the radical sign. And then if there's any numbers left over, and you'll see this 2 is still left over there, we would put that underneath the radical sign. So the square root of 200 would simplify down to 10 radical 2, or 10 times the square root of 2. Now, I'm actually going to take this down a little bit further, and that's because I like to show it all the way down to the prime numbers of it. 10 would factor down to 2 times 5, so this 2 times 5 would equal this 10, and the same would happen to this 10 as well, 2 times 5. And you'll notice that I have everything down in red, showing that they're in prime numbers now. So if you pass up the situation where you could take the 10s out of here, if you would just pay attention to every single prime factor that you have, then you'll get right back to where you were. If you recall, we just said the square root of 200 would simplify down to 10 on the outside, or 10 times radical 2. Let's see how this would work. This 2 right here could pair up with this 2, and anytime that it happens twice, it frees it up, so there's a 2 on the outside. This 2 has no friend left over at all to pair up with, so it's stuck underneath the radical sign. However, this 5 right here would pair up with this 5, so it frees 1 5 on the outside. What happens when you have more than one number on the outside? They multiply each other. So 2 times 5 would get you 10, and there's nothing to do on the inside, so it stays as radical 2. So let's take a look at a few others. Here's the square root of 120. So let's see, what could we do here? How about 10 times 12? Or you could use 2 times 60. It does not really matter. There's faster ways, but you'll start to discover those the more of these that you do. 10 would factor down to 2 and 5. 12 would factor down to 3 and 4. And then you'll notice that this 4 would split off into 2 times 2. I'm going to just pull this one, the 3 down, so you can see it's at 3. I'm going to pull the 5 down and the 2 down, just so that way they're all at the same level. You don't have to do that, but if you don't, sometimes you'll forget that they're there. And then just go and pair them up. This 2 would pair up with this 2, and so it made it go away. And that frees it to go on the outside of the radical sign. And then the 5 would be trapped on the inside of the radical sign. The 3 has no one to pair up with, so it's trapped on the inside of the radical sign. And just like we did in the previous problem, when there's more than one number on the outside of the radical we multiplied, we would do the same on the inside. And then this 2, even though these 2 were able to pair up to get this 2 alive, this, or on the outside of the radical, this 2 right here is actually still trapped under that radical sign. And now we just go through and finish the multiplication. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. So that becomes radical 30. Nothing to do with this 2. Square root of 120 simplifies down to 2 times the radical of 30. Just go ahead and pause the video. Try working out the these three problems. Hit play when you're ready, and I'll show you the answers. Okay, here we go. Radical 92, or square root of 92, would simplify down to 2 times square root of 23. Radical 40, or square root of 40, would simplify down to 2 radical 10. And number 3, square root of 150 would go to 5 square root of 6. If you have any issues with this, let me show you an example of the square root 150 of what to watch for when you're trying to figure out what type of mistakes you made. First off, always double check your factors. Like 3 times 50 would equal 150. If you multiply these two out and it doesn't equal the number above it, you made the mistake right there. So have a calculator to double check it if you need to. The second thing is that a lot of people just let this one sit right there. This prime numbers would sit, and then they continue it on like this. So this would be 5 times 10, for example. And again, they're saying, well, 5 is prime, so I would let this sit right there. And then they go on with factoring it out like this. And what I find is that if it's not a multiplication error, then usually they're looking at maybe these 3 prime factors, and they forget one that's way up there at the beginning. And then if you don't have some sort of system set aside to track how you keep your pairs up, I like crossing it out like this. I know this one goes with that one, and so that would be a pair of 5s that frees a 5 on the outside. And then sometimes I underline those that are trapped inside, so the 2 and 3 are trapped inside of the radical. And then again, you double check your multiplication. You make sure you don't make a silly mistake. And that's how we got 5 square root 6 for the square root of 150.